even though you're not technically running your own per se business or company, you do have to treat it like that. So
Mm.
even as an individual, I have myself registered as an LLC. So I do have two, personal business income bank accounts, which I would have never expected that I had to do. Um,
Yep, yep. No
but
commingling. No
yeah,
commingling. You
no
can't. You gotta.
commitment, no
You gotta
commitment.
separate the business from the personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to the JWell CFO Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Wells, and with me today is Nick Salter. Nick's got a great story about how he is now on his own in real estate. So, Nick, thanks so much for being on the show. Tell us
Absolutely.
about your business and how you got there.
Sure. So it's a pretty quick story for the most part. I was licensed just last April, but it has definitely been a whirlwind of a ride since then. I got my license in April. I was still in school at the University of North Florida, so I was still pursuing a degree, pretty much doing that full time while also trying to focus on getting a client base, making my calls and trying to get at least some sort of foundation for my business. But at the time, I was actually on a team. So the difference between that and now is I was being fed a lot of tools and a lot of leads just to kind of get out there, call them, make contact, and it pretty much really did set me up to get off the ground running pretty much once I had my license. So it was a great way for me to at least gain that experience while also focusing on getting my degree. So, gosh, ended last year. Sorry, let me turn my phone off. I ended last year with about 3.5 million in sales, which equates to, I think it was around 11 sales since April.
Wow.
So really within the 8 or so months that I was just licensed, produced that amount. So being on the team is, extremely beneficial. And I think it is for anyone who is starting out in the business. But to me, I really wanted to do something bigger, and I felt like I was really capable of doing that. And so I
So
decided.
you started, are you still taking classes? I mean, are you still working on your degree or?
Degree wise, no. So I actually graduated in August.
Okay.
So from April to August.
So you started in April, but you were still a full-time college student, or so you were a
Yep.
full-time college student in April, you got your license, you started selling houses, you graduated, you said in August,
Yep.
and then by December, you had over $3 million in sales.
Yes. Yep.
That's That's insane, man. That's not a short story. That's a miracle story,
Well,
man.
it happened pretty quick, and it was a miracle. I mean, I feel
Yeah,
very, very fortunate. I mean, it took so much work. It was definitely
yeah.
nonstop, making sure that when I wasn't studying or doing schoolwork, that I was extremely focused on getting my business off the ground and doing what I needed to do in order to get deals closed. So
When did you decide to get your license and start focusing on that? Because you were still a full-time college student when all this was happening. So when did you say, you know what, I think I can do both of these things. I think I can go out there and sell a few $1 million worth of homes and graduate college all at the same time.
for sure. So I actually started the year in January, as an administrator or executive assistant in my old brokerage's office.
Gotcha.
So the year prior to that, I was in retail and I was fed up. I'd been doing that for years. And so I was really looking for more of an internship type situation where I was going to gain experience in the office. I really wasn't sure whether I wanted to do real estate or, go corporate when I graduated. So at the time it made sense. I saw the ad for the job online, and it made sense because I knew real estate. My family actually owns a brokerage in South Florida, so
Okay.
I'd grown up in the industry, and I was like, you know what? I know the kind of the ins of the business. Like I'll apply, got the job, and then pretty much just being in the office and the environment and seeing them hustle and be around the energy just made me kind of really jump and go get my license. It just got me excited to do it. So
Wow.
as far as the timing aspect, I was like, all right, I just felt ready to go for it and did it.
Very cool. Very cool. So you joined a team, and what was the dynamic of that team like, and how did you fit into that team, and what kind of support were you getting from that team?
Absolutely. So the team I joined, or actually brokerage that I was originally working at, um, it was very new. It's only been in business about, well, at that point, just about a year or so is when I got involved. So it's still very new, but I appreciate that a lot more than I do big box brokerages or more corporate run brokerages. Because of course, like I said, my family does own a brokerage in South Florida. So I just appreciate that a lot more. I feel like it does provide customers a lot more in the sense that it's very hands on, and you kind of tend to see a lot more passionate individuals rather than just a huge flood of realtors like running around kind of trying to figure it out. So as far as the team I was on, it was extremely supportive. We were all, I think there was maybe five of us at one time. There's more people on it now, but all of last year, about four or five of us, like really, really good, hardworking individuals. And it was just a matter of we were all in the office at the same time every day, kind of feeding off of each other's energies. And if I had a question or if I was going through something, someone else had already gone through it and was able to answer my questions, and vice versa for me with someone else. And it was just having that constant, like, okay, we're set here at this time. Let's all work together and work as hard as we can with each other. We'll all see the same results. And
Hmm.
that's just what kind of like got me into the flow of a routine and schedule and how to run my business.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Interesting. So, but since then, you've decided to make a change. Walk us, tell us about when you decided to make that change and what that change was.
So I made the change in early December. It was definitely a challenge as far as making the decision to make that jump going individual.
Hmm.
And
So you're no longer with that team.
no, nope,
Gotcha.
completely on my own. Um, as far just completely running my own business and structuring everything on my own. But I did make the decision early December, so it's still fresh. But it was something that was tossing on my mind. I was giving away a lot of money to the brokerage. Being on the team, I had a lot of support, but I was also giving back a lot, which is completely understandable. And, I'm not knocking that at all, but it got to a point where I was like, you know what, I think if I can produce this in my first year, I'm sure, I picked up what I need to do. I've learned what I feel like I really needed to learn. And if I just keep doing that and keep staying educated and add on other valuable aspects, and I'm sure I'll be able to produce more on my own and keep more for myself. That's really what it did come down to, was, as just feeling the confidence I needed to as far as producing, and then the idea of, what, if I can make this money and keep it, and that's what I want to do. So that's really what really drove me to make the change. And then, like I said earlier, just I felt capable of doing big things, and I want to feel like me working is going to be me building my own brand and just running a business that I feel is myself, not someone else's, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I definitely think so. I mean, I can definitely empathize with your story. So I,
Cool.
started my business in January of 18,
Okay.
and I worked under a couple different CPAs and accounting firms in the meantime. And so within about 2 years, I started feeling like, you know, like you said, whether it was because I was an employee of an accountant or I was doing my own work for my own clients, but doing it under another firm that was taking a cut of, my revenues. They were handling my billing. They were, actually doing all that firm level stuff, but in exchange, they got a cut of, the revenue I was bringing in. And I kind of had one of those moments where it was like, I feel like I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. And, when you weigh that extra responsibility against, controlling that extra money that, you felt like you're just leaving on the table, at some point, something gives. I think that makes a big difference between, the two different sets of people that you have. One is fine with leaving that money on the table and not accepting that
Comfort.
responsibility.
Yeah,
And so these people are employees, they're agents of another brokerage, they're accountants working for another firm. Like, whatever your industry is, there's a way that you can not take the responsibility but also leave some money on the table. Or you want that extra money on the table and you're willing to take the extra responsibility for it.
exactly. Risk and reward. That's definitely simple finance concept, but it's everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So what what does that mean to say that, you went out on your own, that you're independent now? What does that mean for you? What does that mean for your clients?
Yes. So for me, it means I'm completely in control of my business. I can bring in whoever I want to get involved as far as any vendors. Um, I can advertise however I'd like. I mean, of course, I am still a part of a brokerage,
Mhm.
so there's certain guidelines, but I am I have a lot more freedom. So I've recently branded myself, which is something I've never done before. I have I've got my own personal website now. I'm running a lot of social media ads on Facebook, Instagram, Google. And then, I mean, of course, it's all now coming out of my pocket, but it's all my name, it's my branding. And so that's what it is for me. For
Yeah.
my customers, it completely has changed my mindset about real estate. Instead of me being on a team just grinding it out, hustling, it's me now setting up a foundation for my business. It's me promoting value and wanting to provide a lot of value to everyone that I'm in contact with. Instead of me just being just a sales agent or real estate agent, I consider myself now more realtor, which I've always been,
Right.
um, it's a certification, but
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
I have that sense more when I'm handling my deals now. Just it's more so careful, and that's what it is. It's just a lot more on my end value add than before, where I just felt like I was just going through the motion, like contract after contract. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because yeah, I have prepared taxes for a lot of people. I've been a lot of people's tax preparer, but there's only a certain few people that I'm their accountant. And there's a very different feeling when and that's not just me throwing those terms around. That's the actual clients, and so I'm getting on conference calls where the person that organized that call introduces me as their accountant. I'm not just their tax guy. I'm their accountant, right?
Absolutely.
And so there is a when you go on your own, you start taking on those titles that build you up, and it raises the bar of the performance that you need to provide, but it also builds you up mentally and puts you in a state to where you want to provide that additional value.
For sure. You want to cultivate that relationship and make it lifelong. And to me, being independent just really kind of hones in on that and makes me
Yeah,
push for it.
good deal, good deal. Awesome, awesome. So what were some of the challenges that you faced when you made this change? Because there's got to be some cost. I mean, you said now you're taking on some additional cost yourself or whatever, but what did you have this conversation with people who fought you against it? Did what other considerations, what challenges went into this decision?
So no one really fought me against it, I would say. Everyone that I brought up with was extremely supportive because they saw what I was capable of doing, and I felt that myself. But challenges, it has been a challenge. I don't just have a database full of leads to get in contact with, regardless of whether they're hot, warm, or cold. So it's me now going out of my way, trying to network, like I said earlier, spending money on advertising and marketing, trying to just get myself in as front as in front of as many possibilities or opportunities as
Mhm.
possible. And that's the biggest challenge, just trying to find the time and trying to decide where you need to be at the right moment to get the business.
Yeah.
And that's something that I was never used to at all. And so that I would say has been my biggest challenge. But
So you come from brokers, and you've seen what that work is like. Is that part of the big plan? Because I know agents have to work for a certain amount of time before they can become a broker. So is that part of the plan? Are you working toward that?
for sure. So you have to be licensed for 2 years. You have to have your sales associate license for 2 years before you can go for your brokers. And that is absolutely part of my plan to eventually get licensed, or my broker's license for sure.
Gotcha.
So I do want to, eventually grow a team on my own, and maybe eventually have a brokerage on my own. We'll get there when the time comes. But right now, definitely focused on myself, getting a developed brand, and expanding that as
Gotcha.
it gets ready.
Gotcha. So, a lot of talk these days about, college. Is it really, is it really necessary for everybody? We kind of come from that generation where you got to go to college, right? We were just raised in school where the goal was to get into a good college and finish that 4-year degree, right? And now we're maybe starting to backtrack on some of that because we're seeing, the student loan crisis. We're seeing, people graduating out of college and they're it's not a guaranteed job saying you've got that bachelor's degree, but you chose to kind of do both at the same time. I mean,
I
you finished
know.
your 4-year degree and you started a business on your own,
Yeah.
so given that experience, what would you recommend to 16, 17-year olds right now that are, maybe they've got this little bit of entrepreneurial spirit, maybe they've got a little bit of confidence in themselves to do something that isn't just trying to get a job, trying to get a degree and then a job, but maybe they're on the fence about it. What would you recommend to them?
So I would definitely say it's absolutely not for everyone. But if you do have that entrepreneurial spirit, if you do feel that confidence in yourself, then go with it. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's I never did. I kind of always had this like creative side and kind of just out there mind. Was never really like planning to get a corporate job, even though I was getting a finance degree. I just never like saw myself working in a bank or anything like that, and I was just really unsure of where I wanted to go with it. So had I had really listened to my mind and my body and really figured out like, okay, I should get some confidence and go and work on my own thing and try and create some ideas for myself, then I would have absolutely probably had left school a long time ago.
Interesting.
I'm very glad that I have a degree. If I ever need to
Right.
like fall back on it, and it does, boost that. Like, okay, I'm a little bit more reliable or as a source because I do have it. So I'll use it every now and then just to kind of say like, look, I'm educated. But yeah, to start your own business and to be in real estate, you absolutely do not need need it. So I would say if you do have that entrepreneurial spirit and you have the ideas and the creativity to put to work, then you had better be ready to definitely put them to work because it's
Yeah.
24/7. It doesn't stop,
Hmm.
but it's worth it. It's a lot of freedom and it's
Interesting.
worth it.
Interesting. Yeah. So, okay. So let's say somebody is coming in to, whether they've gotten this degree or not, and they're thinking about real estate. What are some of the considerations? What are some of the things that you realize in those first couple months that, you weren't expecting or you didn't realize coming into it? I mean, you come from, parents who knew the business, but, still you don't really know a business until you're actually in it yourself. So what are some of the, 2 or 3 things that, people thinking about real estate that they should take under consideration before they jump into it?
Yeah. Well, definitely have some financial backing. At first, it may not be the most reliable source of income while you're trying to work on getting things pending, because, of course, you don't get paid until usually like 30 days after a contract or offer has been accepted. So
Right.
you kind of need to give yourself some leeway, which I really didn't give myself much. uh, but what else? I mean, it truly is, even though you're not technically running your own per se business or company, you do have to treat it like that. So
Mm.
even as an individual, I have myself registered as an LLC. So I do have two, personal business income bank accounts, which I would have never expected that I had to do. Um,
Yep. Yep. No
but
commingling. No
yeah,
commingling. You
no
can't. You gotta.
commitment, no
You gotta
commitment.
separate the business from the personal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've yet to file taxes on it, so I might be talking to you after this.
All right.
um, but just the amount of people that are involved in a transaction, the
Hmm.
process of the transaction of buying a house or selling a house, I never expected the amount of work that goes into it.
Hmm.
Even though I'd seen my parents do it for many, many years, to be on the inside is a whole different story. To be you're handling people's emotions. You need to stay within a lot of legal guidelines. So it's just a lot of different hats that you have to take on, and you have to be ready for it. And I was absolutely taken off guard by that,
Yeah.
for sure.
You're absolutely. I mean, I know this from the consumer side, right? Because it's one of the biggest decisions you're gonna, and not to say that you aren't gonna get more houses down the line, right? Especially if it's your first or second time buying a house. But up until that point, it's probably the biggest financial decision you've made at that point. And so yeah, you said it with that 30 days, right? You're waiting 30 days, but on the consumer side, you're waiting 30 days, especially
Yeah,
if you're trying to sell and buy at the same
yeah.
time. And so now
It's like,
you've got, yeah, and it's just this wave of emotions. And
yeah,
then there's this constant feeling of like, hey, maybe we should back out, maybe this isn't right, and so you're constantly, the realtor is constantly talking the customers off the ledge. And at the same time, it's like you said, it's this mix of just emotional craziness with legal technicalities, with just big financial implications. And I don't envy you. I don't envy the realtor in these transactions at all. I really don't.
I will say this: when I first got my license, my dad was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" But the piece of advice he gave me was just every day, open your desk drawer and stick all of your emotions inside of it and close it. And he's like, "You can have them back at the end of the day." So I
Yeah. Yeah.
try and repeat that all the time, just to
Yeah, I mean, that's
get off.
I feel a little bit of that on the accounting side, because especially with clients that they're dependent on their business for their income, and they're trying to raise kids and this kind of stuff. And so to tell them that, hey, you had an off quarter, or looking at the books, you had an off quarter, or doing their tax return and saying, hey, sorry, but you owe the IRS this big
Yeah,
amount. I mean, it's just, there are those times where it's, you go from being a realtor, an accountant, to you've got to be a counselor. Now you've got to, and you've got to wear all these different hats as part of the same conversation.
absolutely.
Yeah, but you're right. You have to leave your personal life aside for a second so that you can focus on them.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's
Never
interesting.
goes
That's
away.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. So awesome. Nick, this has been great. Yeah, more power to you, man. More power to you for going out on your own, for saying, I feel confident in myself for doing this. Like you said, it's not for everybody, but if it is for you, then listen to that gut feeling. Don't ignore it. Yeah, yeah. Good deal. Well, so if listeners want to get a hold of you, if they've got some questions for you, or maybe if they're in that Northeast Florida area and they want to do business with you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
So I do have a website now, salesbysalter.com, which will have all of my contact info on it. My cell is 904-201-9973, but it's always in my hand. So
Gotcha.
that's probably the
Gotcha.
best way. But my emails, everything else is on my website. And I do have social media. Username is usually Nick D. Salter on all
Okay.
platforms.
Good deal. And we'll be sure to put links to all that in the description and show notes. Nick, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Really looking forward to seeing how this pans out for you. Probably going to ask you to come back in a year or two to,
Yeah, please.
give us an update on how things have worked out for you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, thanks, Nick. Thanks to everyone listening and watching. I am Jeremy Wells. This has been the J Wells CFO Show. You can find me across all the social media at J Wells CFO. Thank you so much. Have a great day.